Attention, everybody. Today's the voting meeting for the Prescott City Council. It's Tuesday, December 21st, and we'll start off with introductions and announcements. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any?
Thank you, Mayor Good. Yes, I do. I am very pleased to announce that today is our first meeting with the call to the public. So I want to thank Mayor Good and the rest of the council for restoring the call to the public to our agenda. So with that in mind, thank you. I'd just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and we'll see you all next week down at the boot drop.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know we have open call to the public on the item 7 on the agenda, so we'll talk about the conditions under how that's going to work. But at the moment, we will ask Pastor Bill Knotts from the Heights Church to do an invocation for us.
It's a privilege to be here, and if you would, I'm going to pray in my way and ask you to join me. Father, at this most joyous time of year, we come to you with our hearts just bursting with gratitude for this Christmas season, bursting with gratitude for who you are, for what you have done, and all you still have yet to do, Lord. I humbly pray your blessing on all that are here today, Lord, who are going to be giving of their time, their talents, and their energy, God, because they deeply care about this wonderful place that we all call home. Lord, we invite you now to be in this meeting and preside over it. God, we ask that you would give, even though there may be differences of opinion, that you would unite us all in spirit and give this team the ability to think and to strategize in ways that will serve the city of Prescott so well in the coming years ahead, Lord. And God, as we seek to honor you in everything that we say and do, please help us all to be kind to each other, to listen, to love each other, to have our hearts tender towards other people, and to continue to be concerned about things that matter to you. Direct our thoughts, words, decisions, and actions now, God, and let us leave this meeting inspired for 2022. We commit this meeting now to you. May your love, may your grace, and may your mercy always be present here, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Hey, please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Pastor Knotts. Roll call, please.
Mayor Good.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Here.
Councilwoman Hall. Here. Councilman Montoya.
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
Councilman Sischka.
Here.
And Councilman Tenney.
Yes.
All are present.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to presentations. The first presentation on our list is for the Fire Department Employee of the Year. She is apparently on a call right now, serving the city as she rightly has her obligation to. So we'll move that presentation a little bit later in the agenda after she finishes her service on this call, and we'll have a chance to recognize her. So we will then go to an update from our Finance Director, Mark Woodfill, on the conditions of our PSPRS pension funding.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark Woodfill, Budget and Finance Director. I'm the one who always tells people don't forget the mic. We finally got our 21 fiscal year 21 June 30 21 results from the public safety pension. As you can see up on the screen, I had the last 5 years, and we have come from 30% funded to 84.4% funded, which is an awesome achievement. It definitely would not have been possible without the 443 initiative the council put forward and the citizens adopted. This year we had a big reduction, almost $20 million from one year to the next. Again, that has a lot of factors, and there's always a lot of factors in actuarial report, a lot of assumptions and various other things. You look at the actuarial report and there's specific guidance in there, and then they tell you why the numbers change based on what assumptions changed. And then they always have this other category, which is very nondescript and not specific. And that seems to be where it moves a lot. As I mentioned to a few people, as we move into the new budget year, we're going to be watching PSPRS. We're going to be looking at our tax receipts, how they come in. And we're going to be looking at how PSPRS's earnings are looking for this year. And as we get near the end of the budget year, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to look in a crystal ball and eye a point that we can sunset this tax early. So that would be the approach. I'd be glad to take any questions. I have this one slide. I have access to other slides that I've provided over the last couple of weeks and everything, and through the council packet. So if anybody has a question, I'd be glad to go into more detail.
Councilman Shishka.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate that. This is a glorious, glorious report here, and I hope it keeps up for this next year. I appreciate all of the folks on the 443 committee, too, that got us over the top here. We're not over the top yet, but what you're kind of intimating is that we may get over the top sometime this next year if, in fact, things continue on this track. So how are you going to look into your crystal ball and see that? Because they don't give us a report until November.
Right. We get December.
December.
Yeah,
okay.
I got it. Yeah. It takes 6 months after the year closes before I find out where we were 6 months ago. So it's going to definitely be a challenge to try to hit that. And beyond that, there's a time frame that Department of Revenue requires on advance notice to change the tax rate, since we don't do those. They need 60 days, 90 days. You have an ordinance the council will have to adopt, which of course has a 30-day effective type of cycle. So in addition to the 6, that's why we're going to have to just kind of take a guess as we get closer, but I think we'll be pretty close. You know, we've been doing this stuff a couple of years. We can do our best to get pretty close to it.
Yeah, I'll make the comment that the PSPRS investment team did a pretty laudable job this year. Their return was well above about 25%, and a lot of that was in private equity investments that sometimes are very difficult to identify exactly where you stand within that investment option. So we're already halfway through the fiscal year, and we won't know where we stand at the end of June 30th of next year until the following December. So we'll have 6 more months of investment performance that is already on the books, but we don't know what it is. And then we'll have another 6 months that will end that fiscal year, and then have to wait 6 months before we find out where we ended up that fiscal year, and then decide where we stand, and then decide whether we've reached that expiration threshold, which is $1.5 million of our unfunded liability. And then if we determine that we've reached that position with our best analysis, then we have to notify the Department of Revenue that we're changing our tax rates. So there's a lot of steps that are going to be required. But the bottom line is we made a very, very substantial improvement in our funding ratio. And as long as good trends continue, then we should be in a pretty good position to be able to make that decision. Probably, what do you think, maybe a year from now?
And again, you highlighted the points again, which have to happen. There is no way we can wait until we know we're there to stop it and hit it. So I think we're going to have to make a decision probably in July of this coming year. But we'll see what the numbers look like, and we'll bring it forward, and council can make the decision. And again, I do have one graph I updated that we used at various points during the thing, showing the reduction, and there it is again. It shows the 2 elections and shows, where our contribution rates have gone since we started this process. So it did work. We definitely want to get it off to meet what we promised we would do to the voters, even though it's going to be hard to hit. So that's why I think we got to shoot for the July timeframe to make a decision.
Well, I think we should have a pretty good idea of what the investment portfolio has achieved, even though the auditors haven't reviewed it and released it. Normally, we get that report in around late October, early November.
Yeah.
This year, it took them an extra 6 weeks to release those numbers. So I think we are under an obligation to make sure that the tax is retired within the best estimate of when we hit that number.
Exactly, and we'll bring you that with the backup and let you guys make the call.
Very good. So that's certainly something that we can look for blessings of the new year. Any other comments?
Yes, I have a comment, Mayor. Mark, what happens if by some chance we go over and there's only 1.2 million left to pay off?
Well, I defer to legal, but and this whole thing is very complex and complicated. This isn't a mortgage. This is a pension. This is a living, breathing, 100-year type of time frame that you look at on these things. And even if you're over 1 year, you could be under the next. I mean, it's going to fluctuate. So if we call it, in the middle of a year, we're paying into it, others are paying into it. We're probably never going to really know what the outstanding balance was on the date that we ended. Okay. We won't know until the next June.
So we may not know. We may not hit 1.5 million exactly, and
that's probably the only thing I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
I will not hit it exactly. And again, there's other factors to it, and I mean, we do our best efforts. That's all you can expect with the ballot language. Obviously, if anything comes in, it goes to PSPRS.
Right.
So it's not like the money is going anywhere where the voters didn't say they wanted it to go. So
Mark, what happens if we go in the opposite direction? So what if we decide to pull the tax in July and it turns out that PSPRS investment performance has been not as great as it was this year, say, and our unfunded liability goes up? We make the choice and it turns out we're off by $2 or $3 million, say.
That's why you get the big bucks to make those hard decisions. I mean, obviously, once we turn the tax off, the tax is off. Couldn't go back on without a vote of the people. I keep looking at the lawyer to tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It's just the risk you take. But I think by July we'll have a very good comfort level as to whether we're in that sweet spot or not.
We'll be close. And again, 443 did what it needed to do. Even if you're within $1 million or $2 million, I mean, it really saved the city. It saved, the financial spiral we were in, even if we don't hit that number exactly.
Very good. Any other comments? Well, now, as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, we're going to inaugurate this open call to the public. So, City Clerk, will you at least read the requirements, and then I'll make some comments after you have.
Sure. Members of the public may address council on matters not included on the agenda during the call to the public. Please note, pursuant to ARS Section 38-431.01H, members of the council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda, and therefore interaction will be limited to the following: response to criticism, requests to staff to investigate and report on a matter, or request that the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. And Mayor, I know that you and I discussed earlier some specifics that you might want to address with the public today, but I do want to reiterate to everybody that this open call to the public does not mean that this is an open dialogue that you get to have with the members of council. You can address them for the 4-minute period. They cannot respond to you. So I want to make that very clear so that nobody has an expectation that they're going to have a conversation with you about what you're here to comment about.
Yeah, I think this is another opportunity for not only myself, but some other members of the council that were recently elected that had made a commitment to more open transparency of the council's deliberations and the opportunity for the public at large to be able to address council with concerns that they have. So keep in mind, this is an opportunity that we're going to extend to the public, and I hope the public will recognize this as the opportunity it is and not diminish its value by not respecting the requirements that we have as a public elected body, that unless we agendize an item, we're not allowed to discuss it or debate it. And that's the restriction that comes with this open call to the public. We can't have a dialogue with you. We can't debate the issue that you're trying to bring forward. We're here to listen to your concerns. And as I've mentioned many times in my professional career, I found some of the most compelling, interesting, and valuable ideas that came from the most unlikely sources. So by opening up our dialogue and our ears to the public, we hopefully will be able to hear some things that we might not otherwise hear that could be very valuable to the city. So we'll take notes, and if something comes up that we find particularly compelling, we could agendize it at a later meeting and debate it and discuss it and possibly take action on it. So with that said, we're going to allow up to 40 minutes at this part of the council meeting, and each person will have an opportunity to address the council for up to 4 minutes. We'll keep track of that. And we also ask you to fill out one of the forms back there on the table to let us know who you are and what your issue is, and we'll keep track of it. So with all that said, we're going to open this up to the public, and if you'd like to come up and address the council, now's your time.
Elizabeth Deckard.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Deckard. I'm coming to the council members with an issue of safety. I am a dedicated healthcare worker to my community, and I cross at Willow Creek in Miller Valley every morning and evening. And now that it's getting darker, the safety issues are stacking. Several times I've had to dodge traffic. My other fellow workers, some have been hit. So we're asking the council to take a look at the traffic lights there, signage, anything that we can do to slow the public down, like no left without an arrow, no right on red, just some simple things to make it safer for us.
Thank you, Ms. Decker.
I would like to direct our city staff to put this on the agenda for the bike ped committee. Say that?
Yeah, one of the things that the council can do is request staff to investigate and report on the matter. So I think the city manager heard the complaint, and he'll
Matt,
investigate.
sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Our council rules of procedure require that either the mayor or 2 members of council can request something be placed on the agenda. So
This is for the
with
bike ped committee. I'm the liaison
Bike ped? Okay.
for the Bike Ped Committee, and so I would request that the city staff put it on our agenda for next month. Thank you.
Very good. Do we have anyone else?
Shar Hoffman.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Shar Hoffman. My husband Mike and I live in Prescott across from Willow Lake. I attend Sacred Heart Catholic Church and am an active member of the Care for the Earth ministry there. Along with other members of our ministry, I represent Sacred Heart as a part of the Interfaith Climate Action Team, along with people from 9 other faith traditions in the Quad City area. Caring for creation, individually and especially collectively, is an essential part of all of these faiths. Mike and I love Prescott and all the natural beauty that surrounds us. We spend a lot of time hiking around the area lakes, in the boulders of Granite Dells, and in the Prescott National Forest. The hummingbirds flock to our feeders, and we enjoy the many migratory birds we spot at Willow Lake. We never expected to see pelicans in Prescott. We rejoice to see the lake levels in Willow Lake and Watson Lake rise this summer with the monsoons. After living in Apache Junction for 20 years, Prescott gave us 4 seasons again, and the green that we're used to from our home state in Michigan. In fact, when we describe Prescott to our Michigan friends and family, we often tell them that it's a lot like Traverse City, Michigan, with all the forests around us. What we didn't bargain for, though, was an assessment we received from the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management that the wildfire threat for our neighborhood is rated as high. The report provides guidance on how to create a defensible space zone around our property, but no other information about what to do in the case of a fire close to home. The occurrence of major wildfires all over the West in recent years, like the inferno that destroyed the town of Paradise, California, has concerned us, but we never imagined something like that could happen here. Now I understand that our own fire department advised City Council last year that it's not a matter of if, but when our community will experience a significant fire event. Mike and I want to know that our city and the other Quad cities are preparing for other climate impacts from hotter temperatures, air pollution, drought, and flooding. That's why I support the Protect campaign, planning for the resilience of our towns, environment, climate, and tourism. There are other supporters of the campaign here today in person and on Zoom. We want a safe and resilient future for our communities, and to ensure that, we need our own regional climate impact risk assessment. Sedona and the Verde Valley and Flagstaff have already done extensive work to assess their risks, and they're actively engaging with their communities to protect their citizens. We have to do the same work here to assess our risk and create a climate profile so we can put an effective plan in place to build resiliency and mitigate climate impacts. Mike and I will sleep better knowing that we're doing all we can in the Quad Cities to keep us safe so we can continue to enjoy its natural beauty for generations to come. Please support a climate impact risk assessment for Prescott and the other Quad Cities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Rusing.
Hello, I'm Tom Rusing, longtime resident of Prescott. I want to thank Phil Good for reinstituting the call to the public and following through on a campaign promise. I would like to support the first 2 speakers, both on the safety issue at Willow Creek. I've crossed that many times myself, and it is a significant issue, and I think we need to protect our healthcare workers. And I've been very concerned about the impact of the environment on our local conditions, and so I fully support the institution of Protect as well. My comments now, though, are about COVID. Younger, sicker, dying quicker. That was a statement made by a nurse in Arizona in August during the last surge of COVID with the Delta variant. and now we're in another surge, this time complicated by the emergence of the Omicron variant, and I therefore feel obliged as a healthcare professional to make comments. Omicron is more transmissible and probably at least as severe as the Delta variant and spreading rapidly. Yavapai County is reporting 20 to 24% test positivity rates compared to the average in the state of 9%. Recent reports from the hospital show occupancy at 90 to 120% at the two campuses. There's a shortage of ICU beds statewide with waiting lists and rationing of care. The county recently is in the process of acquiring more morgue space. A full-page ad by the big hospital and care systems in the state was taken out, stressing the seriousness of the situation and the need for the public to respond. 80 to 90% of the hospital's COVID patients, especially the seriously ill, are in the unvaccinated. And statements by public health leaders pointing out that much of this is preventable by all of us doing the right thing. I am recommending that the city take an aggressive approach to trying to get the situation under control and to get better participation by the public. Informing the public of the severity of the situation and measures they can take by using public service announcements by council members and local experts speaking on the radio and messaging in the newspaper. I am suggesting that you, the council, strongly recommend that all citizens get fully vaccinated. Number two, wearing a mask as recommended by the CDC. Next, social distancing, good hand washing, avoiding large gatherings, and testing before going to events or gatherings. And do not attend any of these events if you're having any symptoms or a recent close exposure to somebody with COVID. And finally, that our local leadership lead by example. We are all in this together. We can't wait till we lose a loved one or a close friend to do the right thing. Anyway, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rusing.
Patrick Grady.
Good afternoon. I'm Patrick Grady. I'm a Prescott resident since 2017. I'm a member of the Protect Steering Committee and also, as Shar mentioned, also the Interfaith Climate Action Team. We all know now that the climate impacts of wildfires, increasing temperatures, flooding, and drought are impacting our communities here in the Quad City. And this isn't a future event. It's happening now. We don't need just facts because we can feel it. We can experience it. From the 100-plus degree weather that we experienced 3 days in a row in June to the 1,000 wildfires across Arizona in just the first 8 months of this year, including the Rafael fire in Chino Valley. The trees in our forests, and probably your backyard, certainly in my yard, are dying now due to drought and to heat. And we've already lost 6 miles in the upper Verde River. So these trends are disturbing. Our Quad Cities region, as has been expressed, needs to elevate and amplify the conversation on this issue. It affects our quality of life, but it also affects our tourist-based economy. We need to be prepared, and we need to collaborate through broader community engagement. A climate risk assessment provides the framework necessary to identify what needs to be in place to build resiliency, mitigate impacts, and put necessary adaptations in place. From a personal point of view, my faith calls me to advocate for care and stewardship of the earth, grounded in the interconnectedness of the sacred, the natural world, and for one another, because love is central to who we are, and we're committed to ending the suffering that's caused by climate change. And because we embrace hope,
we're empowered to live into our vision for the world for both the present and future generations. Our hope, both my wife Leslie and I, is that our granddaughters, who are so connected to nature already at the ages of 8 and 12, will not bear the brunt of inaction. We hope that our own beautiful community of Prescott, blessed by mountains and forests and lakes, will not fall victim to the catastrophic wildfire that occurred in Paradise, California only 3 years ago. And we hope that in the Quad Cities region, we are inspired to exercise the local leadership necessary to hold this conversation. It's our hope that the current Prescott City Council will act on this grassroots community-wide call and set the foundation for the climate resilience that our region needs by conducting a climate risk assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grady.
Kaya Hayes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Kaya Hayes. I'm a Prescott resident and a member of the Protect Steering Committee, among other community groups. And I wanted to start out by thanking you all for the reinstatement of the call to the public and echo some of those sentiments of gratitude that were shared previously. I think a connection to our leadership and civic engagement is crucial to continuing the great work that you all are doing in steering at the helm of our community in the future. And actions like this send a really clear message that a relationship with the public is something that's valuable to you. And so on behalf of all of us, we're really grateful for these really tangible opportunities to build that relationship. So thank you. I'm speaking here today on behalf of the Protect campaign, who you have begun to hear about a little bit through some of our previous speakers. I want to shout out to our supporters both on Zoom and in the audience there. You heard about the acronym, Protect, planning for the resilience of our towns, environment, climate, and tourism. And in short, we recognize that our citizens and our economies are greatly impacted by and will continue to be impacted by extreme events like the things mentioned: forest fire, drought, flooding, hotter temperatures, and also by the experiences that folks are having in places like Phoenix, which drives them to look for communities like ours that are more hospitable, more appealing, feel more full of opportunity as they face similar issues. And so in order to be resilient and to preserve our character, our sense of community, our livelihoods, the safety of our lives and property, we need to be prepared. And that's where the Protect campaign strongly feels that knowledge is power. And when it comes to making decisions in the best interest of our communities and our future, that's why we're proposing that, along with support from our other Quad Cities communities, the Prescott City Council look into conducting a climate impact assessment, also called a community vulnerability assessment in some areas. And through this cost-effective expert examination of our region, we end up with a really tailored understanding of how these events and these conditions impact our community and our area. And some of the unique impacts that may be overlooked in other more general information that's available. We know what solutions become more attractive as options for our community, the more specific our knowledge is about our needs. And so a Quad Cities Focus Report would provide us information to do three things. First, it would allow us to stay safe with informed emergency and evacuation planning and greater support for all of our hardworking first responders who are going to be guiding us through events like wildfire and things that greatly impact us across the Quad City. It would also allow us to stay competitive with planning that both preserves one of our greatest economic drivers and attractions, our natural resources, but also by highlighting Prescott as an attractive, viable, long-term location to invest in and to grow. Industries like tech, aviation, all of the promise that our airport brings, folks are going to be drawn to an area that has, the natural resources and the quality of life that they want, but also a community that's invested in their future and that is planning ahead to ensure that we can navigate these things safely and with resilience.
Please conclude your remarks.
Thank you. And it would allow us to stay us by tailoring a plan and vision for the community by the community. Only Prescott and the Quad Cities know what's best for our future and for our families. And that's why we would like to invite that the Prescott City Council consider how the Protect campaign might fit into a future agenda item in order to learn more about what this report could do for us and how it could start the conversation for planning for our future.
Thank you.
Donna Lisa Chandler.
Hello. I'm here today to voice my concerns as a citizen, again, regarding the intersection at Miller Valley and Willow Creek. As a Prescott motorist, I have had a few harrowing encounters with the pedestrians there due to my own confusion and or their confusion. I excuse my ignorance, I'm not sure what was voted on earlier, but I would like this to be an official topic for the City Council, as I believe it's already been in the subcommittee's hands for the last couple years with no permanent solution. And I, for one, do not want to be blood guilty because I have made a mistake or a pedestrian has. There needs to be some oversight, and this needs to be fixed. Again, we're going on 2 years. As you know, we're growing. We have a brand new building, and those clinics are coming from outside, so those staff have to park somewhere. So there's going to be a greater influx at that intersection. And I do, again, want it to be an official topic or agenda for the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Carty.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for doing this open call. My name is Jonathan Carty, and I've lived in Prescott and Kirkland on and off for the past few years now. Before I bring up the subject I'd like to talk about, I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in Arizona, and I was born at the hospital that I worked at in Glendale, Arizona. I worked in healthcare for 10 years, and after that I had my own successful online business for about a year before the pandemic hit. And while living at my folks' place, I did the husbandry and care for a couple dozen animals for a couple of years, pretty much every day. The reason I'm telling you this is because there might be some who wish to dismiss me outright because of the information that I will share with you might seem a little out there. I'm not some kooky person who just waltzed in here to share some silliness that I just fabricated. I know I can't convince anybody here of anything, but just share information and hope that you give it some serious consideration because what is going to happen is serious and wonderful. Our planet is going through a transition into a golden age, which has been prophesied by several ancient cultures and civilizations. We're living through those times right now, and the moment of the breakthrough is being called the event. The event entails a simultaneous worldwide release of suppressed advanced technology paid for by we the taxpayers, unacknowledged on Netflix, including healing technology, free energy, and so on. This will be followed by a worldwide disclosure of all crimes against humanity on the mainstream media by the people who have been controlling things for thousands of years. This is ready to go right now. This includes mass arrests of these global criminals, which will be televised for everyone to see. Violence against them will not be tolerated. They will go through the justice process so everyone can get healing. This brings me to the next bit of information, which is who has been in control of things on this planet. At the top of the pyramid is a network of families called the Black Nobility families. They've been here this entire time creating reality exactly the way they want it. They are very patient and are pure evil. They have popes in their families, and they trace their bloodlines all the way back to ancient Rome and even before that. The nucleus of this network is called the Massimo or Maximus crime family. Their second Roman Empire is actively collapsing. This divine plan is being guided by benevolent beings, and we have contact with them. We will have contact with them when the time is right after the event. Right now, it is not safe for them to do so because the Black Nobility families want to suppress all benevolent contact with ETs and eliminate any proof of them so people think they are alone in the universe. The Galactic Confederation has been featured in the mainstream media. It is a real group of beings who want liberation for planet Earth and its people. If one of their ships approaches the surface, the Black Nobility families, their proxies in the Air Force, will scramble their jets to intercept the ship and destroy it if necessary. World War III will not be allowed to happen the way the Black Nobility's family want. I personally met with Laura Eisenhower in 2018 at a gathering. You might already know she is the granddaughter of former and late U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower, who allegedly met benevolent beings and were ultimately turned away. A book was written about this meeting in addition to a short film called Stranger at the Pentagon, and she's totally into all this alien stuff. Intel about the event is being released on a blog, 2012portal.blogspot.com, which is where you can find this information. This is the official communications outlet for the resistance movement. Our future is bright, despite the constant barrage of negativity coming from the mainstream media. There are countless positive groups working behind the scenes to prevent the destruction of our beautiful planet and bring in this golden age. The Black nobility families are losing control, and they know their time is up, and their horrifying crimes against humanity have been getting exposed, so they're doing everything they can to cause as much suffering and hardship as possible before they are defeated, including destroying the planet by trying to start wars however they can. It is difficult to summarize such a difficult situation in 4 minutes, but I hope I've done a decent job. There's much more to this, but you can find more at the blog that I mentioned. Thank you for your consideration. Amor vincit omnia. Love conquers all. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all, Mayor.
That's all.
Is that all?
That's all.
Well, that concludes our call to the public. It's an inaugural event, and I appreciate everyone's civility, and hopefully we will be able to address some of the substantial suggestions, and we'll see how this continues to develop. Thank you. All right, so we now will move on to our consent agenda. Has anyone requested that an item be pulled? So we have Councilman Montoya.
Yeah, Mayor, item 8D.
8D.
And I've requested item 8C.
Okay, so we will pull items 8C and 8D from the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion on the remaining items.
Mayor, I move we approve consent agenda items 8A and 8B.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, will you wanted to comment on 8C?
Yes. I just would like to collect some more information about this project, more about, we're just approving the design phase today, but I'd like to have more of a comprehensive report as to the scope of the project, the areas it will serve, and also details about the reimbursement district that will be formed and who will be included in that district. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. Gwen Rowich, Deputy Director of Public Works. I've placed a map on the screen behind you that shows the area that would benefit from what we're calling the Prescott Lakes Lift Station project. This area, the area that you see in red here are the properties that will directly benefit from the lift station. Once the lift station would be located, we believe, approximately right here in this location at the corner of SR 89 and Prescott Lakes Parkway. The lift station will pump sewage wastewater to the north, and right here, approximately at Blooming Hills Drive, there is a sewer manhole, and then the wastewater will gravity feed to the north and continue north until it hits the wastewater treatment plant. So the reason for the reimbursement district is because these are the parcels that will directly benefit from the improvement. And if the city forms a reimbursement district, we define those parcels that directly benefit, and at the time that they develop these parcels, they would pay their proportionate share of the cost. At this time, we estimate the improvements to be approximately $1.8 million, and that includes the design that's on the consent agenda today, which would equate to about $25,000 per acre. There's about 70 acres of land in the area that you see here in red.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was very informative. Now, I can see from the map that it looks like the lift station complex will be across from the water fountain area that's there.
It would be on approximately the southwest, well, maybe the northwest corner, right here at the light. We've spoken with the property owner, and they're open to giving the city, we would purchase a small parcel of land for the lift station site here at this corner right here.
And since it's located across from that huge waterfall complex, will there be an effort to maybe design it to be appealing to the eye? Will there be screening or something?
Actually, the property owner, Mike Fan, asked that we, to the extent possible, either bury the infrastructure and or conceal it behind a wall, because that's a prime corner for him for commercial development. And so we will be taking that into consideration. We don't want a big lift station just sticking out of the ground at this prominent intersection. So yes, we'll be considering that.
All righty, thank you.
Question. So without this lift station, would those parcels not be viable for development?
They can, if sewer is not available to them, they can use septic systems. So that is an option that they would have to develop. We can't, we could not deny them using a septic system if that's what they wanted to do, because we don't have sewer infrastructure available to them here.
And it's kind of, we wouldn't want them using septic because it looks like they're in the watershed.
They're near the creek, yes, but as long as they meet the requirements from the county, the county, they can get a septic permit and develop with septic permits. Under this current city code, it says that if it's new construction and it's adjacent to a sewer main, they must connect. So if we put in, there's a force main that already exists up Prescott Lakes Parkway here in this location, but nothing flows in it because there's no lift station. So the cost of the lift station has been prohibitive to any one single property owner building it at $1.8 million. That's a pretty big price tag for some of these parcels are as small as 2 acres. The largest one, I think, is 10 acres. And so by sharing those costs proportionately across all of the parcels, it makes the cost of the lift station more viable for those property owners.
So how many parcels are there?
There are 12 parcels that equate to approximately 70 acres. So that in turn is how we got the approximately $25,000 per acre, is how we would assess the cost. Each time someone came in to develop, they would pay their proportionate share. And as each year goes by in the reimbursement district, we adjust that cost by the consumer price index. So over time, it costs them more to pay their proportionate share as opposed to less.
So if this lift station was not built, then they would have to develop with septic?
They
Do
could
they have
develop
access
with
to city
septic.
water?
They could develop with septic tanks and still receive water. Yes.
And they have access to water now?
I don't believe any of these have a water service agreement or access to water, but they are in the Prescott Lakes Development Agreement area. So they are subject to the 2,718 lots that we've discussed previously for other developments in this area.
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it, Gwen, and I'm just trying to understand this a little bit better. So is it, if we build this lift station, is it possible that one of these parcels could still put in septic?
If we put in the lift station, then the sewer becomes available and they would be required to tie into sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then if we have the sewer reimbursement district, do the property owners pay to bring the sewer to their lot line?
They do.
Okay.
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Oh, yeah. Councilman Moore.
Gwen, I just have a question. I know that they're going to be decommissioned, but we currently have wastewater collection ponds very close to this area. Is it not possible to route this in the other direction and save the expense of the lift and just shoot that untreated sewer out to the recharge ponds to be treated there? Because that sewer that's being collected there is going to be rerouted to the new the recharge pond facility. It just seems like it'd be much easier to go this way than to go that way because you're using gravity.
I'm going to let our utilities manager answer that question for
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Eric Bay, Utilities Manager for the City of Prescott. So yes, just looking at a two-dimensional map, that's a very valid question. Knowing a little bit more about the system and the future of what our system holds makes more sense to pump in the existing force main up to the top of Prescott Lakes Parkway. If we were to route that sewage across the bridge at Prescott Lakes Parkway over to our treatment plant, we would have to have an exposed aerial force main crossing or a significant crossing under Granite Creek, which we would like to avoid. Additionally, once we got to the treatment plant, we know that the treatment plant is scheduled for decommissioning with the phase 2 expansion of the airport water reclamation facility and then the centralization project that the city has been achieving. So while we would pump it closer, we would have to repump it through the Sundog lift station, which is currently located at the plant, up to the exact same location on Lillian Lane, where ultimately, if we utilize the force main at Prescott Lakes Parkway, the flow goes to Prescott Lakes Regional and then to Lillian Lane. So ultimately, the flow will get to the same location, but it's more cost effective now to pump up Prescott Lakes Parkway.
Two questions, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Eric, the Lillian Lane, is that off of Willow Lake Road?
Lillian Lane is a road off of SR 89 within the Dells.
Okay. And then how is the sewage being routed to the current recharge or the current facility without getting across Granite Creek? Am I making myself clear? The facility that's off of Sundog Ranch Road, there's obviously sewage going there now. How is that getting there without going across Granite Creek is my question.
Yes. So there are a couple different items in play there. The first one is the effluent ponds that we have there at the Sundog site. Those do go across Granite Creek in a 24-inch pipeline, and that goes to a booster station that's located at the roundabout, the entrance to Watson Lake. From there, that effluent can be pumped up into Prescott Lakes and used for golf course irrigation and such. Additionally, at the same site, the Sundog Wastewater Treatment Plant site, we do have a lift station there. That lift station also crosses the creek, and then it enters SR 89 and flows all the way up to Lillian Lane at SR 89. So currently, we have two crossings of Granite Creek with a force main and with an effluent main, and installing a third crossing there is not something that's cost effective or not something we're interested in.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you.
All right, any other comment? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda item C.
Second.
Passes 6-1. Item 8D.
Item B, Councilman Montoya.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I had a few questions about this item regarding the recruitment of the city attorney. Joyce, I'm wondering if you can speak to the challenges that we've experienced thus far to kind of help educate the public a little bit about what our thought process was.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Joyce Lira, Human Resources Director. So I'll give you a little bit of a background on the city recruitment for city attorney. We opened up the recruitment in August and kept it open for about 5 weeks. I had the opportunity to speak to all of you and crafted a brochure profile, went out, did a real robust marketing. The HR team did, so thank them for that. And then we also sent personalized letters to over 150 city attorneys or assistant city attorneys within the state, and we got 6 candidates. And the 6 candidates really didn't meet basically the qualifications for the job. So we thought we'd take a step back and basically say, okay, let's wait for new council to be seated. And we're at that point now. So there's 2 options. One, we could reopen the recruitment, and the second was to go forward with an executive search firm.
Go ahead. I was trying to cut you off.
I'm recommending an executive search firm. It's very common in the industry for these high-level positions to go out with an executive search firm for city attorney, for city manager. This one particularly and historically has been hard to fill. The process that I used, this is a professional services agreement, so you don't have to do a formal bid process based on our procurement rules. But I went out actually and contacted 10 executive recruiters, those that are known within the Southwest. And out of those 10, I got 5 proposals. Out of that 5 proposals, 1 dropped out. She basically specializes more in engineering, and she was very expensive. She was $45,000. The other 2, one mostly works in California, the other in Texas. And the 2 that turned out really work in Arizona, one of them, Columbia Limited, which I'm recommending we use, they've worked for the county, they've worked for Prescott Valley, Flagstaff, Sedona, a variety of different local and regional cities, and hired their city attorney. So I felt really comfortable with them.
So specifically in the work that they've done here locally, have they gone through a process of hiring a city attorney before, or recruiting, I guess I should say, a city attorney?
I don't think they've done one regionally, but actually the qualifications of the principal, Andrew Gorgay, he actually is an attorney.
Okay.
He worked for government for over 21 years. He also was a city manager and county manager before. He worked for Peckham and McKinney as an executive recruiter in California. He started his firm about 5 years ago, and I think he's very qualified. And he had a lot of initiative in talking with me several times about doing the recruitment.
Have you reached out to the other local municipalities,
Yes.
or even other ones that maybe aren't local and like kind of?
Yes, I got references from Prescott Valley and Town of Chino, as well as Flagstaff.
Okay, that's all my questions, Mayor.
Thank you.
Well, I make the comment that I had a chance to review some of the original applications that came in when we first recruited internally. And I felt that we have to do a much broader, more professional search. The requirements for our city attorney are quite substantial. Very few cities in Arizona have their own police and fire department. Obviously, we're dealing with a substantial amount of development, understanding a lot of the historical natures of the development agreements that exist. And of course, we own our own airport. So we are kind of unique in the scope of responsibilities our city has, and being able to recruit and attract a really effective city attorney clearly is going to be a challenge. So retaining a professional search firm to be able to reach out a little more broadly than originally we were able to attract, I think is very, very justified. So at that point, unless there are any any additional comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to pass to approve a consent agenda item 8D.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda.
Approval of city contract number 2022-1360 for the purchase of one Type 3 fire engine truck from Rosenbauer, South Dakota LLC using Sourcewell contract number 022818-RSB.
Pardon me. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. The item before you this afternoon is to purchase a new Type 3 fire engine. Our current single resource Type 3 engine is upwards of 20 years old, 20 plus years old. The engine that is different from most of what you see around town provides us better access into the wildland urban interface areas. It is a four-wheel drive capable fire engine as compared to a traditional municipal fire engine. A couple questions I know arisen upon publishing of the agenda. One is if we took this out for bid. We're exercising the opportunity to use a cooperative purchasing agreement, which does a lot of the down and dirty work for us. It's a competitively bid process, and in this particular case, we feel that continuing with the Rosenbauer brand is critical for the efficacy of our maintenance needs. All our other fire trucks that have been purchased at least probably for the last 12 years are Rosenbauer brands. That does a lot for us on the training side to alleviate the needs to become accustomed to multiple different types of fleet needs. It also makes it easier on our facilities or fleet folks in order to maintain that vehicle. The other piece, traditionally tried to purchase the frame and the undercarriage of these apparatus in one payment, followed by the payment of the balance of the cost. This guarantees to the manufacturer that we're good with the purchase. It also allows us to make incremental changes as things evolve once we become known, or if there's a brand new safety need that's addressed in NFPA or National Fire Protection Association. It allows us to be responsive for that. Finally, what I would say is, we value past council members' decisions. I think it's been critical to mention that in the last 7 years, we've taken an average fleet age for our frontline Type 1s from an age of 19 years, average, down to about 6 or 7. This continues with that process. This will round out all our frontline fire engines, the Type 3. And then, unfortunately, my successor is going to have to manage the fleet needs as we look to replace 2 ladder trucks in the out years. But with that, I'm here to answer any questions, as is Tim Legler from Facilities, if you have any other more technical questions.
Have any questions? No, I just want to make a point that being able to acquire some of these more robust capabilities in a fire truck, as we are well aware, being able to deal with potentially off-road suppression or response with a truck with this capabilities is certainly something that we need and we should expect. And I appreciate the fact that we're using a similar or the same manufacturer to be able to maintain those trucks and keep them in good operating condition. So I'd be happy to move to approve this item myself. So I recommend that we move to approve city contract number 2022-130.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, thank you. And our honoree just arrived.
I noticed that.
How gratuitous is that to pop in the room at this particular time? I assure you she wasn't sitting outside. They've been rushing to get off the dirt track of Walker Road. So thank you very much for your time.
We'll temporarily postpone moving to item B, and we'll take this time to make this presentation to the Prescott Fire Department Employee of the Year.
I think she was Rookie of the Year, too.
Oh, at this point? Well, let me just come up there then.
You made it.
I made it.
Well, today I'm pleased to share with Chief Life and City Manager Lamar the chance to honor and recognize Nicole DeLeo in her selection as Fire Employee of the Year for 2021. Nicole was one of 3 nominations received, and based upon the nomination criteria, it was noted that Nicole has an active leadership role with the Prescott Firefighters Charities. She's active with the charities in their fundraising efforts, raising money for use within our community towards helping those less fortunate and in need. Nicole is also one of just a handful of mentors. Thanks. Boy, I should know better, shouldn't I? For the department's probationary firefighters. This aids newly appointed members of the department as they transition from civilian life to one of servant leadership within our department and the Prescott community. According to Nicole's supervisor, Captain Jeff Archer, he shares that, quote, "I've seen Nicole demonstrate what customer service truly is. We have had a regular patient in Fire Station 71's area that lost her husband to cancer and has since been very lonely and calls EMS for anxiety with near fainting episodes. The doctors at YRMC have told her that she's suffering from literally a broken heart, attributed to the loss of her husband. Nicole has developed such a rapport with this patient that it has turned into a genuine friendship, and Nicole often exchanges text messages with her new friend and even meets her occasionally for coffee. Since Nicole has adopted this patient, as we sometimes refer to it, I've noticed that we're getting far fewer of the broken heart calls. Nicole doesn't do this out of any other motivations other than she sees a lonely, broken-hearted, sweet old lady who needs a friendly face to talk to. So Nicole is without a doubt one of the most deserving of this annual award and recognition. So please recognize Nicole DeLeo as Prescott's Firefighter of the Year.
Yay!
Yeah, watch that stick there. Well, Mayor and Council, first and foremost, I would offer Nicole's much more than that. She's also a testament to perseverance to get into this profession. About 4 years before she hired on with us, she came to meet with me. She came highly recommended from a colleague of mine over, Sarah Tomsky, over with the U.S. Forest Service. Sarah sat down with Nicole, I sat down with Nicole, and we kind of shared her the pathway to get here, but she made that pathway on her own. She worked for YRMC for a little bit, doing EMS work, and then after 3 unsuccessful tries, she was hired on with us on her 4th try, which might have been her last try. I think she was getting a little frustrated, but a great member of the team. Nicole, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to a regular agenda item 9B.
Approval of RVP 21-022, a revision of plat for Country Park Estates subdivision, extending the boundary of the subdivision to incorporate an unsubdivided parcel and enlarging Lot 5 by incorporating that unsubdivided parcel. Wow.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. That was a little bit of a hard act to follow.
You don't have to take this extra.
Although, if you want to buy me a fire truck, I'll take one. This is a request to make a modification to the boundaries of an existing older subdivision in town by incorporating a small piece of property into the subdivision and combining it with a parcel in the subdivision. The property in question is on Highlander place, it is a single-family home, kind of an odd-shaped lot. It is the result of a split that occurred to a previous lot in the original subdivision, and I'll show you those original alignments. So the primary house exists on the lot that I'm showing in red. The small sliver of parcel that the property owner of the house owns already but is outside the subdivision is the smaller piece shown in red. You can see sort of, here's the house. There's a small garage that exists on this parcel, and this line is the boundary of the subdivision. So the house is in the subdivision, the lot that the house is on is in the subdivision. This small sliver of lot with a small garage on it is not in the subdivision. Property owner desires to combine the two parcels together for development purposes. This is a very small building. They desire to have a larger garage. Right now, there is this property line that exists through the middle of where they need to build their garage, and that property line has a 7-foot setback on either side. So measuring off 7 feet from either side, what you end up with is room to put another one of these. And their desire is to have a reasonable sized garage on the property. So by eliminating the property line, they will be able to build something somewhat larger and not be restricted by that internal setback requirement. The problem comes in, you can't combine a parcel outside of a subdivision with one inside of a subdivision without amending the boundary of the subdivision, and that's the purpose of this request today. Again, just to give you a clearer view, zoomed-in view of the two parcels, the intention is to eliminate that center line and make it one parcel, but again, to do that, you have to bring it into the subdivision. This is one of our newer subdivisions from 1958, as opposed to those you saw at last meeting. In this case, the larger Lot 5 had been split up over the years into two separate parcels and then ultimately a third parcel prior to annexation into the city. So the properties in this area were annexed into the city in 1974. So platted in 58, annexed into the city in 74, with that Lot 5 already carved up into smaller pieces. Somewhere along the way between 74 and today, a previous property owner acquired the sliver parcel, and it has transferred with ownership of the property since that time. Proposed addition to the subdivision is a small piece. The boundary of the subdivision would simply jog around and incorporate that, and then that sliver would become part of Lot 5R. And again, a little bit closer view showing you the area where the subdivision boundary would be eliminated and the new subdivision boundary would be created. The property owner could not get here for this meeting as a result of being out of state, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I have had conversations about the reasoning why, and I've outlined some of those with you. Because this is a change to the boundary, it is a revision of plat rather than an administrative replat. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Councilman Tenney.
George, is there any arguable downside from the city's perspective or from potential neighbors' perspectives to adding this small piece to the subdivision?
None that I can find. Again, the primary concern with development of the property is the setbacks off of this line in both directions. So there's a 7-foot on either side of that line that restricts development of any structure above grade. So you can't build a building where they would normally be able to build. There is an easement that runs through the property here. They can't build over the easement, but with the setback removed, they can build adjacent to the easement, which gives them enough room to actually construct the garage they're seeking.
Thank you.
Councilman Montoya.
George, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly.
Certainly.
Do they just own that little sliver, or do they own like the additional? Like, does their ownership of the additional plot go beyond that?
To the south, no. So the owner of Lot 5R, the property to the north, owns this sliver.
Right.
That was transferred through several owners in the past, and the property further south belongs to a separate owner.
Okay, that I just wanted to clarify and make sure I understood. So they're just trying to pull in their little sliver so that they can have a bigger garage.
We've had a number of folks looking to do the same thing as previous owners. None of them pursued the subdivision boundary approach, simply left things as it was. This particular owner wants the larger garage, and it's now important to eliminate that interior line.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Thank you. I just have one question. Is this subdivision on sewer or septic tank?
I'm not absolutely sure. I believe it has sewer service in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any comments from the public or neighbors?
No, Mayor.
All right, well, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve RVP 21-022.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, we're now at item 9C.
Approval of City Contract Number 2022-127 for acceptance of an American Rescue Plan Act grant for Prescott Regional Airport in the amount of $1,136,874 as administered by the FAA, and approval of City Contract Number 2022-128 for the acceptance of an American Rescue Plan Act concessions grant as administered by the FAA for concessionaires based at Prescott Regional Airport in the amount of $23,791.
Thank you so much, Mayor, City Council. Christy Miller, Airport Services Manager. So I'm here today to actually receive money, not to spend money. So hopefully you like that.
Before you spend it.
All right. So this item is to accept 2 grants as administered by the Federal Aviation Administration on behalf of the U.S. Department of Transportation. This is part of the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, that was signed into law on March 11th of this year. This legislation did include almost $8 billion specifically for airports to help prepare for, and combat COVID-19 related impacts. As part of that, these funds differ a little bit from what you heard earlier during the study session from our Finance Director, Mark Woodfill. These funds specifically are meant for costs related to operations, personnel, cleaning, anything essentially combating the pathogens at the airport. Additionally, through this legislation, ARPA did also provide funding for relief from rent and minimum annual guarantees to eligible airport concessions. So there is an allotment as well at primary commercial service airports for those terminal concessionaires, and we were included in that. So as I mentioned before, there are 2 different grants within this ARPA funding. The airport specifically would receive $1,136,874, which we can use for operating expenses at the airport and reimbursement. And then that additional funding of $23,791 for terminal concessionaires. This, as I mentioned, is to provide that relief to airport concessionaires based on a proportional share. We only have potentially 2 eligible concessionaires at our airport, so it's very specific on how that is divvied out to those concessionaires. We have to provide a funding plan and get that approved before we can institute that. But we are seeking to get all the clarification that we can on that part for the concessions. To date, the airport this is actually a 3rd in a series of COVID-19 relief grants that the airport has received. With authorization to accept this grant, we'll have received almost $3.2 million specifically for airport-related expenses. We can use potentially this funding for capital expenses. However, the FAA does advise, as part of the revenue use policy, to try to make sure that you keep those for operating expenses and use that freeing up to help fund those other capital costs. So with approval today of the acceptance of it, we will utilize those funds. Potentially over the next 4 years, this grant does allow for a 4-year period of performance to spend the funding. However, we do anticipate that we will try to spend it as quickly as possible on as much eligible expenses to free up that funding as well in this year's budget cycle for additional capital costs. Within the ARPA as well, we also get 100% federal share on a previous project that Council has approved, our Taxiway Charlie Phase 2 project, which is great as well. So that was another added benefit. So we have no city share this fiscal year on that project that's been previously approved as well. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Change your mind?
She answered my question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2022-127.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2022-128.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Great job. All right, we'll move on to item 9D.
Approval of city contract number 2022-132 with Empire Cat, ratifying the emergency costs associated with permanent generator repair and backup generator rental at the airport water reclamation facility.
Good afternoon again, Mayor, Council, Eric Bay, Utilities Manager for the City of Prescott. This next item that I have for you today is approval of the costs associated with the emergency repair of the 2 meg generator at our airport water reclamation facility. And I'm not a big fan of retroactive approvals, but back in August, our wastewater treatment staff was put in a bind when we had Empire Cat up on site doing maintenance and a load bank test on our generator, and a medium voltage wire arced and damaged a significant amount of the electrical equipment in our generator, leaving us without backup capabilities. Our wastewater treatment staff immediately worked with Empire Cat to mobilize a backup generator to the site, as well as order the replacement parts for our permanent generator. And the reason they did that right away is because without backup power, any interruption in line power would have led to almost immediate permit violations, process failures, and plant overflow within as little as 30 minutes. So time was definitely of the essence with this emergency repair. I am happy to report that our generator is repaired. We have demobilized the backup generator, and we are now back running without imminent threat of any overflows or permit violations. So that's what this item's about, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Councilman Montoya, you got in there first.
Eric, I emailed back and forth with Craig about this a little bit, but I just wanted to understand from my correspondence with him, my understanding is that there's not any way to create redundancies beyond just kind of what we have in place with Empire Cat to be able to kind of backfill this need as necessary.
That's correct. The generator is supplied by Empire Cat. They're the ones who we have a contract with to do maintenance on, and they were the ones that are familiar with the equipment. When we came to this equipment failure, they were able to provide the backup generator, and also they were the ones that would have been able to repair it. Going to a different vendor would not have been successful.
And I guess another question I have is, and my impression, again, from Craig was that this is kind of like a pretty unusual event that happened as well. Is that how you would qualify it?
Very unusual. I have never seen anything like this before, although mechanical equipment, electrical equipment can fail. So it just happened to do it during our test, which actually is probably the better of the scenarios, because if that equipment would have failed during an actual line power outage when we needed that generation capability, we could have been in a worse situation.
So is there anything we can do differently going forward, or is this just kind of the way it is?
We actually are already exploring other options. There's a new technology out that was presented to us from our power service provider, APS, and that's the microgrid technology, which is kind of a new innovative switching technology from what I understand. And we're working with APS currently to have a microgrid set up at our airport water reclamation facility. This will subsequently remove the need for us to have a generator at our plant because we will have a microgrid operated and maintained by APS, which will provide us power in the event of a line outage.
How far out is that?
We're in the preliminary stages right now. We've been providing background information to APS's microgrid specialist, and last we heard he was going to do some evaluation and get back to us. He said the 1st of 2022, so we're expecting it within a month.
And do we have any preliminary idea of how much that would cost?
It's not going to really cost us a bunch. We're going to provide the land. And
how do you define a bunch?
I don't. So let me restate that. I don't have any cost estimate at this point. The general idea behind the microgrid is having strategic microgrid locations in different geographical areas is beneficial to APS.
Right.
So if they can find the land, which we're willing to provide and have them set up there, they will provide the equipment. If there's any additional costs as far as setup, I'm not 100% sure, but the cost should be minimal for the city.
Good. Thank you so much, Eric.
Councilman Moore?
Just a quick question, Eric. You said that the incident occurred as a result of CAT testing our equipment. I was just wondering if they had any liability in what happened, or it's just a fluke. I mean, like, are we responsible for covering these costs when it was maybe they caused the event to occur? I was just asking that question.
We did look into that, and we can't find any culpability on CAT's part. Otherwise, yes, they would have been responsible for those costs. This is just an equipment failure. We are looking into a potential insurance claim to recoup some of these costs since it was a failure.
And I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. I see we have a maintenance contract with Empire Cat. How much does that cost a year?
I can't speak to that because that contract is administered by our Fleet Services division.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve city contract, number 2022-132.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, item E.
Approval of City Contract Number 2019-161A5, an amendment to City Contract Number 2019-161 with Fan Environmental and Fan Contracting Joint Venture for Guaranteed Maximum Price Number 5 for their intermediate pump station early materials procurement.
Good afternoon, Eric Bay again. The final item that I have for you this afternoon is another piece of the water production facility and intermediate pump station project, which I believe you've seen me speak on once, twice, or 5 times before. But as I previously mentioned, a large CMAR or construction manager at risk project tends to have the project broken down into multiple guaranteed maximum prices or GMPs, which really helps the project move forward in like different parts or different phases while some of the other details are being finalized with the project. The GMP that you're approving today is GMP 5, and GMP 5 is for early material and equipment purchase. The reason that we're bringing this GMP forward is we are experiencing some very long lead items for equipment and materials. So the equipment and materials included on this GMP are things such as our piping, our fittings, our valving, pumps and motors, electrical equipment, electrical switchgear, and we also included some precast vaults and basins. So approval of this GMP today is going to have nothing but a positive impact on the project. And the reason that is because it's really going to minimize the city's risk to future material cost escalations. It's going to minimize the risk for potential project delays due to material delivery and minimize the risk to potentially material shortages where we can't even receive some of this stuff. The cost of the GMP that we're approving today is included in the overall intermediate pump station cost. And after this GMP, we're anticipating one final GMP to take the project to completion, with the final GMP coming shortly. Will include installation of the materials, the rest of the site work, additionally some subcontractor work, the building subcontractor, the concrete subcontractor, and take the project through final testing and acceptance and into the warranty period. Additionally, outside of the GMP, we are expecting a little bit of cost to come towards council for APS and or APS's contractor to extend electricity out to the site so we can power our new wonderful intermediate pump station. City staff has evaluated and negotiated the GMP with the CMAR contractor. As a reminder, the CMAR contractor is the Fan Environmental Fan Contracting joint venture that was selected via competitive SOQ process back in 2019. We found the GMP to be responsive and balanced, and city staff is recommending award at this time. With that, I'll take any questions about this project.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. We've looked at this project several times, and I take it the total cost is going to be about $30 million?
For the intermediate pump station site, correct.
And there's going to be two 6 million gallon water tanks?
I'm happy to report that construction has started on the two 6 million gallon pre-stressed concrete tanks.
And we expect that the cost is going to be financed with WIFA loans. Is that the plan?
That is correct.
And then as far as the scope of the project, I mean, this is a pretty massive project. Is it going to serve the area to the west over to Williamson Valley Road and Stringfield Ranch? Is it going to serve that area in addition to Deepwell Ranch and traditional Prescott to the south?
So the city of Prescott has one of the most complex water systems in the state of Arizona, and water that goes through the intermediate pump station has the ability to be served to every single one of our service accounts in the city. Does that mean that it will? Not necessarily. Once we enter the two 6 million gallon pre-stressed concrete tanks, there are actually two booster stations located at the intermediate pump station site. One of them will be labeled the intermediate pump station that will pump up to the north tanks on Douglas. The other booster station, which will be set to a different hydraulic grade, is going to be the Zone 110 booster pump station, which will serve areas in and around the intermediate pump station site. The reason that we do this is because, while we could pump all of our water up to a very high HGL and then slowly burn off energy as we feed some of the lower parts of Prescott, it makes more sense from an electrical efficiency point to pump the water to the exact HGL that you need, so we're not using any more electricity than we need.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve City Contract 2019-161A5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, that concludes our regular agenda. I'll make you one more comment here from our third president and the father of the Constitution. A well-educated people alone can be permanently a free people. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay.